I love Christians. And no, I'm not being sarcastic. I love Christians. You've heard me say it in my act before. Well, what do I mean by that when I complain about them and ridicule them all the time? Well, I'm not saying I love all Christians. It's certainly not true. It's hard to think of a group where I can say I love all of them. But I do love some Christians. There are Christians who I love. Some of them I loved before I knew that I wasn't a Christian. Some of them I've met since, and I love them. I have very good friends that are Christians, and I get a very frequent comment in my comment section of my videos that Christians aren't worth talking to, and then I get blanket statements about how terrible Christians are. Well, I will speak about my views on Christianity, and I don't censor that. I share it with Christians. Any of the Christians I mentioned who I love are always welcome to watch these videos. They're not set to private, they're publicly shared. I put them on my Facebook where I'm friends with lots of these folks, many of whom are family of mine, and many of whom do watch my videos. I don't like negative blanket statements that Christians are stupid or that Christians are homophobic, etc., etc. Now, if you said that based on things that you read in the Bible, Christianity should be homophobic, that the Bible is homophobic, I would stand with you on that. If you said that the Christians who aren't homophobic seem to have an inconsistency between their beliefs and what's in their book, I would say that there is an argument for that. But to deny that there are Christians who, for whatever reason, are very accepting of everyone, including homosexuals, to deny that there are Christians who are really intelligent, I think is just ridiculous. But the most offensive part to me of saying that Christians aren't worth talking to is that, well, I was a Christian, and if people had assumed that attitude with me and thought that I was not worth talking to, I might still be one. It was people who talked to me, shared books with me, answered questions that I had, that helped me with the thought process that led me to not being a Christian. And this continues, people say, well, you were a kid, but this continues into adulthood. John Ross recently stopped being a Christian. John Ross was the Christian on the Coexist Comedy Tour, and is a very good friend of mine. I'll put a link here. You can see the interview that I did with him on his process of losing his faith. I'm sure glad that people didn't say to him, oh, you're not worth talking to. You're just an idiot Christian. Now, the logical question is, if I see their beliefs as irrational, how can I defend them as being intelligent or being nice people, etc., etc.? Two things there. First, let's just go for a minute with the idea that they're not as intelligent. Would this stop you from liking someone? Do you know what the legal definition of developmentally disabled is? It's someone with an IQ under a certain point. I believe it's 70. I know a lot of people with developmental disabilities, and I love them. So I don't base how I love people on intelligence. But that was, going with the idea that to be a Christian you have to not be as intelligent. But it's a lot more complicated than that. There are complex psychological reasons why one would have trouble letting go of a belief system, would work very hard to hang on to that belief system, and I can hear some of the smart Christians I know just rankling right now at what I'm saying. But this is from the perspective of someone who does, admittedly, find your beliefs irrational, and would have to say, wow, how can this intelligent person subscribe to these irrational beliefs? And I do talk to you, and I respect your intelligence, and I listen, but it's never succeeded in convincing me that there is an intelligent argument for Christianity. Now take what I just said and apply it to any of the other religions as well. It's equally as complex. Religion is ingrained into our culture. Religion has worked very, very hard to be something that's indoctrinating. And it seems wrong for atheists to complain about this indoctrination and this brainwashing and then have no sympathy towards people who seem unable to get out of it, or who play what may seem like a weird game in trying to make their beliefs compatible with their more modern morality and their more modern beliefs in science. So, and then one final thing, oftentimes the arguments that I hear against the intelligence of Christians, the intelligent Christians I know can actually shoot down really easily. To me, it's the most simplistic arguments that are hard to meet. But a lot of times when people throw actions of the church at them, or the negative actions of Christians throughout history, or things in the Old Testament, I've seen intelligent Christians they don't have to really be very crafty apologists to just, say, well, we subscribe to a pre-Constantinian Christianity. We actually just go by the words that Christ spoke. We recognize the Bible, which Christ had very little to say about, because it didn't exist yet, is not necessarily an infallible work, and we just work really hard to get to what we see as the words of Christ. Again, I'm helping make their arguments for him, because I've heard these arguments, and they're not stupid people. And I think it's very conceited of you to say, oh, I'm smarter than them, oh, they're all unintelligent. You can say, I believe they're wrong, but then I think there's a more sophisticated question of how do smart people believe in this thing that I find so irrational. And I think that if you really ask that question honestly and then take a good look at it, there's a little more to it. Most importantly, though, to me, what it really, really comes down to, the most simplistic part of it here, is that these are just people that I know and love and I work with to do good things. These are people that I've stood next to in protests, and people that I've seen help feed the homeless, and oh yeah, they did it with an agenda or whatever. You know what? Screw all that. Everyone has an agenda. Even if it's just to feel like a good person, or to, I respect some agendas more than others. But there are Christians who go out and feed people and don't necessarily preach to them, and don't do anything more than if they're asked, why are you doing this? They say, well, I believe that this is what my God wants me to do. I believe it's the right thing to do based on my religion. There are non-preachy charitable Christian organizations. So, I'll say to my Christian friends and family out there, I love you, and I'll say to my Muslim and Buddhist and Hindu and Sikh and Baha'i friends out there, and I do have friends in each of those groups, I love you, and I think you're horribly, horribly wrong. I think that you're completely mixed up, and it's baffling. But I respect you, and I like talking to you, and I find you worth talking to. And to any people who might be future friends of mine who subscribe to any of those religious beliefs, I hope that you'll comment on these videos, because I think you're worth talking to as well. And I hope we can continue to have a lot of great conversations, and I hope we can let go of this idea that anyone's not worth talking to. That said, I do shut people down in my rooms if they just want to come in and participate in name-calling and trying to block civil discourse by constantly, hitting you're a fag, over and over again and stuff like that. But that's another video for another time. Anyone that wants to have a reasonable conversation with me, ask questions, debate, etc., awesome. I dig it, and I think it's worthwhile. That's Atheist Church for today. Bye-bye.